Hi, I'm Pantazi. Today I want to show you a tool for research that's going to blow your minds. All right, and let me build up the stage first. Now, we started this like 40 years ago or thereabouts, and we originally went off Ohan Soken's notes, but it was quickly shifted by an instructor to pressure points. Now, when we figured out that it wasn't the pressure points and it was actually real anatomy, going back to the Ohan Soken notes is what clarified everything, because Ohan Soken, as you've seen in my past videos here on YouTube and the extended videos, you've seen that we've broken it down into its anatomical structures, the physiological effects, which Ohan Soken stated very clearly, and tested it out and demonstrated it to watch the functionality or the dysfunctionality of the opponent. And then we cross-correlated that with Fujita's notes. Now, Fujita's notes were hard to translate because it was in a language that was an ancient language that's all but disappeared. Few people can work with it, but very difficult. But what we found were there were 18 schools, and they're listed and diagrammed all their Kyusho targets and named them and showed us that it wasn't pressure points, okay? They didn't refer to the Chinese names or the Japanese names for pressure points. It was real anatomical structures. Now, in Fujita's notes, it's kind of cool because the names actually correlate with the physiological effects that the human undergoes after an attack there. Now, this validates also the Ohan Soken notes, which came at a later time. And this showed us, when we did our research on that, what I did for the extended videos was I broke down the target. I showed you exactly what Ohan Soken said. We looked at his diagrams. We went into the three-dimensional anatomically correct model. We went in to see the depth of the target past the skin, fascia, muscle, bone, etc. How it laid in between the bone structures, the muscle structures, whatever the target was and however it was laying, to show you how to best attack that. Then we explained the tool. Now, it's funny that Ohan Soken also named his tool that he used on a specific target. As an example, he would talk often about using the ken, which is the fist. Now, that's a very powerful blow. So you needed that powerful blow, which was much beyond a palm, because a palm would only get into a surface type of an attack, like a nerve structure. All right, but a fist could get deeper into the human tissue, but it was still blocked out. Now, what we want to work with, or what we were looking at also, was he would mention a dagger a lot. Now, a dagger, okay, you stick a person with a dagger and they're going to have a disruption. They're going to be wounded and they're going to drop. Well, the dagger to me also meant the depth of penetration necessary, and that you were trying to cut something. So if you're using the ken, you need a powerful blow, but you need it to go in pretty deep or hit with a lot of power. If you used a dagger, well, you don't have to use power, but you do have to sink in deep, which means that you have to use a specific tool from the Bubishi, like, and this is what correlates the Bubishi to all of this research, to get deeper into the human anatomy. And that's what those 6 tools were all about: how to properly access them, how to properly attack them with the correct trajectories. Now, the research also went on in the Ohan Soken notes in particular, because that was our most recent thing, to the demonstrations. So you could see the physiological effects that Ohan Soken mentioned, Also, some of the physiological effects that were listed in Fujita, we put that into real life and showed you what would happen on an attack on a real human being. So that brought our research even deeper. Now, we've been doing this quite a long time, as I mentioned, while other people are still stuck on the pressure point paradigm. But this research goes even deeper. Now, we've been correlating with medical professionals, doctors, and scientists of all different studies and disciplines to make sure that we were on the right track, make sure we didn't harm anybody in our experimentation, and just cross-correlate to see what the effects were, what could possibly happen, would there be side effects, etc. And we still communicate with our medical professionals. We have a long line. I have doctors that I've been talking to for 20 years plus, and we still cross-correlate our information. Some of them practice Kyusho, some of them do not, and their feedback, the ones that do, is just, of course, invaluable research as well. But there's another key, and this goes to trajectory basically, but it also goes to anatomy and tools, all right? And this research, I'm going to show you where to find all this information, and it is just a mind-blowing bit of research that you should, if you're a serious Kyusho practitioner and you really want to take it to the high levels of skill adaptation, then you're going to need to have this research, and you're going to be very appreciative, and your eyes are going to open even wider to what Ohan Soken was saying, what Fujita was saying, what all the old scripts right back to the Bubishi were trying to tell you about the art of Kyusho, Dimmak, Dimsyu, whatever you want to call it. All right, it's the attacks on the human body inside the human body, not outside like regular bludgeoning punch kick type of martial arts. All right, so this is a huge boom for you if you're really deep into Kyusho and you want to see some interesting research. And this is just, again, a small glimpse of what I've been doing over the past decades, correlating all of this research together and cross-correlating them, bringing them to the doctors to check to see if they're viable, see if they're safe enough to apply, see the cautions that go with them. For example, I have this one technique that is so dangerous, okay, that we tried it once or twice and now we don't try it. We know we can do it. We practice methods of doing that and targeting it in sparring and stuff, but we don't apply it anymore because the possibilities are too great for serious injury. Anyway, stay tuned for the extended videos here on YouTube, in the Patreon channel, and also the Platinum subscription. All the links are below. All right, let's investigate some deeper research. Now, one of the things that we have to really consider is that we have to think outside the box. All right, we go back to the Ohan Soken notes, the Fujita notes, the Bubishi, many manuscripts, and they're listing targets as fatal. Well, if we're not going to experiment on the people and actually kill them, how do we determine this is possible? And it's not, but we can take the research out of the box and into the field and take a look at hunters and their kill shots, and we can equate it with the human anatomy. Now, guaranteed a deer or a hog do not have the same anatomical structures exactly as a human does, but we can take a look and cross-correlate that with the human anatomy that you've seen the models many times, and even in Ohan Soken's notes, you've seen the models, the anatomical models, the 3D models, really hone in on a target that could kill an individual. Now, some of them equate definitely to these upcoming films you're going to watch for not only killing deer, but hogs, the shot placement for arrow, for gun. We don't have that privilege on a human being. We are using our hands, so of course the techniques are muted, but we're not putting full power, so we can't really truly equate that. But what we can do is we can take a look at these targets and how the hunters think about it, and look at the real anatomy as they gut the animals for preservation for the meat or whatnot. And right at the end, I'm going to put an video on the kill shots using an arrow. What's significant about this for the research is that the arrow shows the true trajectory. The author of the video, or the presenter, uses a model. He also uses a real deer, and you can see how the arrow goes through the organs, the heart, the lungs, etc., to procure the kill. So sit back and watch these couple videos. They are graphic, and they were real. So cross-correlate that with your Kyusho studies, especially the Johann Soken notes, and go from there, reverse engineer, and then get on the mat and start training some of these targets. Of course, not with arrows and bullets, but with your hands in a much more muted fashion to get the same results we did on the Kyusho targets for you in the Johann Soken notes.
Well, it's late August and archery season is just about here. Folks are shooting their bows, getting all tuned up. And one thing we want to make sure that we do, though, is when we do go afield, have the opportunity to shoot a deer, that we can kill it as quickly and as cleanly as possible. That all starts certainly with being proficient with your bow, but it also has a big importance of understanding exactly where the organs are in a deer so that you can pick the exact spot to be able to shoot. Now, I'll say this, there's a lot of different places you can shoot a deer to kill it, and I'm not here to argue one over the other. But what I am here to say is, I think with a little knowledge about exact location and placement of certain organs, you can do a better job pinpointing exactly where you want to shoot a deer this fall. An example that we have here, this is actually a form from the National Bowhunter Education Foundation. This is an anatomically correct form, meaning the heart, the lungs, the bone structure is all exactly like it is in a real deer, so we can show you what's happening. Now on the back side of this, the skin is gone and all the organs are exposed. I'll show those to you in just a minute, but first I want you to think about where you would shoot this deer, particularly where a lot of people are taught to shoot a deer, often is behind that front shoulder. Now, what we think is here, we see where the leg is as it comes up. Many people incorrectly believe that this bone extends straight up from the leg. But what we can actually realize here is the bone does not. There's actually a large portion just straight up from the leg that is wide open from a bone perspective that we can put an arrow or a bullet right through. The bone actually runs forward toward the neck and then angles up into the shoulder. So, a really good way to judge this in the field, whether you're hunting with a bow or a rifle, very quick and easy, and an easy place especially to teach new hunters, is if we come straight up that leg and then cut the body right in half, where those lines cross is a perfect place to hit this deer. And the reason for that is, if we turn this around and let you see on the back side, where that look, and I'm going to pull this bone off. Here is the bone that I talked about. The bone runs forward. The bone comes to the shoulder. This whole area in here is free of bones, and that's where we want to hit. I'm going to take this off to better highlight exactly what I was talking about. If we come straight up that front leg, and we break that body right in half, we are literally right at the top of the heart. So if you hit a deer there, you are going to take out the top of the heart, you're going to shoot it through both lungs, it's going to die very, very quickly. Short blood trails is what we're looking for. Hit it with an arrow here, it's going to expire very quickly and leave a very short blood trail, very easy to find. If you shoot it here with a rifle, 9 times out of 10 it is going to drop right on the spot and not even require a blood trail. And that is a great feeling when you're afield. Now, the nice thing about this as well is it is super easy to judge in the field, and it also allows for the greatest air around this. If you miss a little high, a little low, a little front, or a little back, you still have plenty of vitals here to have a very easy killing shot very quickly. This is a good opportunity to talk a little bit more about anatomy of a deer. Many people understand where the heart lays, but few people realize how it is angled a little bit. If you ask somebody, if I show you this side and say, hey, come on up here and draw exactly where that heart is and exactly how the angle of it is, Many people actually can't do that. Folks have been hunting for years and years because we just don't study that part of it that quickly or that closely. However, if we look here, we can see exactly where it lays. So for all the times that you are aiming behind that front leg, getting behind the shoulder, you actually are almost guaranteeing yourself that you're going to miss the heart on a broadside shot. So what I suggest is right up tight to that, come right up that leg, and you have a much better opportunity of taking that heart out and then hitting both lungs at the same time. But this is also a good opportunity to take a look at exactly where its spine is. We hear many people talk about shooting a deer through that dead zone, you know, the area above the lungs and below the spine. But as you can see here, that area does not exist. There is no area above the lungs and below the spine. They actually are touching each other. What most people are thinking about with that, or what maybe they don't realize it, but what they're actually talking about is an area above the spine. See, there are no vitals here, because most people think that that spine runs right along the top of a deer's back, but it does not. It dips way down, especially at the back of the neck as it comes through. And it's these projections off that spine that run up to the back. So the spine is much lower in a deer's body than many people realize. So when most people talk about hitting that dead zone, yeah, it kind of is, but it's not below the spine. It's actually above the spine, and they may just be hitting one of these projections or literally just going through skin. If it's with an arrow, this is often through and that deer's gone, no blood trail or very little blood trail, and obviously you don't find the deer. With a rifle, a lot of times if you hit here, that deer will drop immediately, sit there for a minute. You may think you've killed it, and it kind of gathers its wits and it jumps up and is gone. That's because the shock of the system with a bullet hitting one of these projections, but in most cases not a killing shot either. So understanding where the spine is relative to the lungs and the heart can make you a much more knowledgeable hunter as you head afield this fall. All right, so from a broadside perspective, we know we want to be up from this leg and about halfway up the body, particularly if we're shooting from a ground blind or on a level surface. However, though, if we're in a tree stand, you know, how much of it higher do we want to be able to hit a deer if it's a downward angle at it? What a lot of people make a mistake is they are aiming, you know, about halfway up. But if you are way above the deer, that is not the greatest shot in the world. And actually, a better shot is to go in higher, like we see here. And some people may say, ooh, that just looks way too high. But let me show you what can happen if you increase your aiming point a little bit higher from this angle elevated from a tree stand. As this goes through this deer, let's take a look at exactly what we're hitting. And in fact, we see by starting high, we are going through the left lung, and it's coming out at the bottom of the right lung. So a hole in the bottom of the deer, obviously it's great, blood is dripping out, leaves a very good blood trail. But what happens is if we did not hit this deer as high as we did, if we aimed lower, rather than coming through the second lung, this arrow would come out below, maybe straight down, and you end up with a single lung shot rather than a double lung shot. So with that, the aiming point, rather than aiming in here, don't do that, that's a single lung, get a little bit higher and you can get both lungs and have a much shorter blood trail this fall. A very good shot from a bow hunter's perspective is that quartering away shot. We can get that arrow in behind the ribs, hopefully go through both lungs and make a very, very short blood trail for ourselves. One mistake people often make on this though is actually they aim too far forward as they're hitting and end up behind that front leg, but very close up here. What is a much better shot to take is on this angle actually be moving back a little farther, and with this angle some people look and say, man, that's just all guts. Well, if that was a broadside shot, that is true, but on a quartering away shot, aiming toward the back of the ribs is much better than the front of the ribs, because once again we can spin this around and see this is going to go in. Sure, it is going to get some of the entrails, but it's also getting the diaphragm, it's getting the left lung, and you can see where this comes out. It's also getting the heart and the right lung. Low in the body, great blood trail, extreme trauma to this deer, it's going to die very quickly. So again, look how far back we are to come through that. If we would have hit this deer much farther forward, again, we can come out here. We have another chance for a single lung shot, or maybe just getting a bit of the second lung. Certainly no chance for the heart. So this is a much better shot, and it's all based on just understanding where the lungs and the heart lay and understand where we want to hit that deer to be able to come out there. Wise bow hunters often talk about understanding where you want the arrow to exit, even more importantly than where you want it to enter, to understand exactly where to place that pin or that sight, and that is especially true on a quartering away shot.
How many times have you heard of the high shoulder shot? It's deadly for gun hunting, and I'm going to explain it for you here today. When you're gun hunting on a high shoulder shot, right here, the scapula, that's what we're talking about. But how does that drop the deer on the spot? There's a little bit of a biology lesson here that's fascinating when you think about it. On the high shoulder shot, in scientific terms, all the muscles and nerve endings that come into the shoulder are called the brachial plexus. This is a center hub on any animal, and on deer what you have is you have nerve bundles coming from 5 of the cervical spine areas, roots from the cervical spine that all come together right here in the shoulder blade. What that allows the deer to do, just like we can move our arms. We have a brachial plexus right here. We'll be able to grab things with our hands, we'll be able to move our arms. Same thing with a deer. It's going to allow them to walk, it's going to allow them to stand, it's going to allow them to bend over and bend down. That's what those nerve bundles do. That's how that all operates. If you can disrupt that brachial plexus with the force of a bullet, that trauma basically will render that deer dead immediately. And I'm going to show you how those nerve bundles come in here. A deer's spine consists of 26 vertebrae. Starting at the base of the skull, there are 7 cervical vertebrae, followed by 13 thoracic vertebrae, followed by 6 lumbar vertebrae. But for this exercise, we are only talking about the 7 cervical vertebrae and the 5 nerves that come out of the spine by those vertebrae and meet at the scapula. Those nerves are the musculocutaneous nerve, the axillary nerve, the median nerve, the radial nerve, and the ulnar nerve. All of these nerves meet up at what is called the brachial plexus, which is the center housing of the nerves on the shoulder blade. Think about it as a breaker box in your home. If you flip that switch with a bullet, you will turn out the lights immediately. So when we go back to our model piece here, we can take this out right here, and we can look at the scapula is a triangular shaped bone. This ridge here is solid. Now with bow hunting, almost impenetrable. With a gun, very penetrable. All those nerve bundles coming down, attaching to that shoulder blade and allowing that leg to move. You disrupt this, those nerve bundles, they're no longer transmitting, they're dead. The deer is dead. You're killing the deer on the spot. So that's great for gun hunting, but what about bow hunting? You know what? It does happen on occasion that you take an arrow and you center punch that scapula. I would never, ever recommend this shot because you're asking for disaster. If you don't completely center punch that thing and cause the necessary force, that deer will recover from that injury. You're not going to find it. The reason why it works so good for gun hunting is that bullet is destroying everything in its path. And when you're looking at the damage, the shock wave coming from that bullet, that's what's dropping that deer down. But with bow hunting, yes, it can happen, but again, never recommended. You want to put that deer down quickly. You want to drop that deer on the spot, learn the anatomy, aim for that brachial plexus, and you'll be amazed with the results.
On this video, I want to first off put a warning out there. It's going to be extremely graphic for some. This video is intended to be a helpful tool for hunters. If you're offended by video of a graphic nature, especially with hunting and anatomy of an animal, please turn it off. The reason why I'm saying that, we don't want to get this video flagged or anything right here on YouTube. What we want to do is we want to provide people with a proper tool to help them be a more ethical hunter, to be able to recover animals better and be able to enjoy their harvest. And so this is a warning, and so if you're going to be offended, I'd really appreciate it if you just go ahead and turn it off. All right, I took this hog about an hour before dark, and I made a very good shot on it, dropped it in its tracks. I shot it in the brain. The reason why is because I want to show you the anatomy, the inside of the chest cavity, so you see the organs and you can know better why you shoot a hog in a different spot than you would shoot a white-tailed deer. Okay, so here he is. I've got him skinned out. You can see he's completely skinned out, and of course what I've done is I've taken the front shoulder right here and I've removed it. So it's laying right here in the exact same spot where it would before I detached it. We're going to take this off and move it. On a deer, if we were going to shoot a deer, most people say shoot a deer, especially if you're an archer, shoot it back here. shoot it in this area here. And a lot of people wind up shooting a hog back here, and when they do that, they make a bad shot, and you'll see why when I remove this side. But what happens, we're going to move this away, and we're going to slide this back. Okay, and inside here, you're going to see these are the lungs right here. This is his left lung, and this is his heart. Okay, there's the heart. You can see the side of the lung over there, and this is his diaphragm right here, and his liver, and of course his stomach, and then the rest of his guts back there. So we're going to lay this back just like this. Lay this side on here, and we're going to put the front shoulder right back where it belongs here. Now, where you want to shoot a hog is forward and down a little bit, about right there. And the reason why, let's peel this back. Let's go ahead and peel this back. And right here, you're going to get a piece of the lung, the front lower part of the lung, and you're going to get the heart. Take it out right here. It's going to bleed quickly. It's going to bleed out. You're going to recover it. You're going to have a great blood trail. But that just shows you the anatomy on a hog. Hogs are real problems down in the South, and they have two different places, they say, the places that have hogs and places that will soon have hogs. And so what we want to do as a hunter, we want to be able to make good, clean, ethical shots, recover animals very quickly. And I think by learning the anatomy of a hog, it will help you be able to do just that. So take a look at it once more. Let's peel it back. You've got the lungs, you've got the heart, the diaphragm, and the liver. So shoot a hog further forward than you would a deer, a little bit lower than you would a deer, and I think you'll recover them in short order.
As you can see, the hog here next to me has the dots on it. The red dot is my preferred shot, and I'm going to go into that in a minute. The reason I'm doing this video is on the different forums there seems to be a reoccurring thread that shows up on where to shoot hogs, and there seems to be some confusion about this. And I believe the reason for this is as hunters, most of us have grown up shooting deer, and the preferred shot for a deer is behind the shoulder. Well, on a hog, the organs and heart and lung are farther forward and lower than in a deer. And I think this is where the myth of hogs being bulletproof came from. Most people are shooting like they would shoot a deer, and you're ended up hitting either the stomach or the guts, and the hog either runs off and heals up or runs off and dies somewhere, several hundred yards away where you're not finding it ever. So, that's where that myth that hogs are bulletproof came from, in my opinion. Now, hogs are tough, and they will run off, and that's another reason why I prefer the red dot here as my shot placement. If you shoot a hog and you hit perfect heart and lungs and take them all out, I've shot several of them, and the hogs run 50, 100 yards off into the brush to be found the next day by the buzzards or not to be found at all. You can see on some of my videos where it's a definite heart shot and the blood's plumping out of the side. You can see it in the thermal, and they still run or charge or whatever happens. So that's why I choose this red dot here. That is the center of the neck, right on the front curve of the shoulder. And the reason I picked that is that's where the spine is. When you shoot there and you hit perfectly, you're going to take out the spine. And with a powerful caliber like the 6.8 or a 308, even if you miss, there's a lot of muscle around there, and from the shock of that round, you're going to break the neck and usually take the hog out. There are some cases, if you hit a little bit high, there is a thick piece of meat there, and you may knock them out, and they'll get up and run off, and you won't find them. But for the most part, if you hit right there, you're going to break the neck, take out the central nervous system, and the hog's going to go down and stay down. The reason I picked that spot instead of the ear hole shot, which you see right next to it, is hogs are always moving. They rarely ever stay in one spot. They're always turning around. They're always, foraging for food, moving their heads up and down. So I picked this spot just in case, as I'm squeezing off that shot, the second that the firing pin hits the primer, if that hog moves forward a little bit, I still hit dead center in the shoulder and take out both shoulders. If he takes a step back, I hit the ear hole, still a central nervous hit, and the hog goes down. So that's why I prefer that center shot. earshot, there's nothing wrong with it. But going farther back there behind the shoulder, that is a no-no. That's going to be nothing but either stomach or intestines, and they're going to run off on you. Even with a 6.8 or a 308 or even 4570, I've seen them run off. Now, better bullets like the 120 SST or a better caliber like the 6.8 or the 308, you stand a better chance of knocking them down and keeping them down there for another shot. But they will run off if you're gut shotting them. In this next image right here, this shows you a cutaway, shows the spine, the organs there where they are. I really think probably they're a little high up even in this demonstration. I think the heart's a little bit lower. And again, if you take out that heart and lungs, for the most part, these hogs still run quite a ways with no lungs and no heart. If you hit that center shoulder and break the shoulders, then they go down, and of course their legs aren't working, so it's hard for them to run off. But the spine or the brain shot is your best shot. And somebody asked me that, different angles, which one I would. Since hogs move so much, I would wait until you have this broadside shot. I mean, they're not going to stay still very long. I'm going to put a video clip up here in a minute and show you how they move around. But you can wait a few seconds and get this perfect broadside shot. It's just it's worth it to wait for it. Now, if they're already running away and you're shooting at them on the run, then all this goes out the window, because when they're running and I'm taking my running shots, I'm aiming for center mass. I'm just trying to hit them and knock them over. This is for that perfect first shot where they're sitting still, or after they've run off a little bit and they stop again. This is where you want to shoot them. And we'll go into the video clip and you'll see here the hog moving around. Here's another image. This is a 3D image that I found of a hog, and it just gives you a little bit better, see where the nerves, the arteries, the organs are, and the spine, and it's just another view here for you. I hope this is helpful for somebody out there. This is basically designed for the new hog hunter that doesn't know and has been hunting deer their whole life and has been taught to take that shot behind the shoulder. That's the wrong thing to do on a hog.